10 everyday heroes doing extraordinary things. Vote now for the CNN Hero of the Year at CNNHeroes.com on Twitter and Facebook Messenger.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a tax doctor now.
I was on heroin.
I used crack cocaine.
We both know you've seen and heard me talk about addiction too many times to mention. So why haven't you called? What are you waiting for? The call is free, and so is the consultation. If you have private insurance, your treatment could be covered with no out-of-pocket costs. So call now and get the help you need before it's too late. Don't be another statistic. Remember, call now.
Call 800-832-8116.
Attention all users of the dangerous blood thinners Xarelto or Pradaxa. You may have been exposed to the serious risks caused by these medications. Call Guardian Legal Network now. There are time deadlines to file your claim. If we don't win, you pay nothing.
This is CNN.
Well, let's update you with a key race alert right now. Let's start off in Michigan. Michigan, 70% of the vote is in. Donald Trump maintains his lead. He's got a lead of 23,000 plus votes over Hillary Clinton. 16 electoral votes at stake in Michigan. In Wisconsin, 78% of the vote is in. He's got a better lead there. 92,000 vote lead over Hillary Clinton. 10 electoral votes in the state of Wisconsin. In Arizona, Trump has a lead. 63% of the vote is in. He's up by 50, almost 59,000. There he's gone over 59,000. Vote lead over Hillary Clinton. In the state of Arizona, there are 11 electoral votes in Arizona. In New Hampshire, 77% of the vote is now in, and Donald Trump maintains his lead of more than 5,000 votes over Hillary Clinton. It's close, but he's still got the lead. You see it to 47.9% to 47%. 4 electoral votes in New Hampshire. They could be critically important. Let's take a look at some of the other states right now. In Utah, Trump is ahead. A third of the vote is now in. He's ahead by more than 100,000 votes over Hillary Clinton and the third-party conservative Evan McMullin. Trump is looking pretty good with a third of the vote in the state of Utah. In Pennsylvania, 92% of the vote is in. Look at how close it is. 48.2% to 48.2%. Hillary Clinton is down, though. Donald Trump is ahead by 2,800 votes. More than 5 million votes have been cast. He is ahead by 2,857 votes. In Nevada right now, Hillary Clinton is ahead with 71% of the vote. Hillary Clinton has 36,000 plus votes over Donald Trump. 6 electoral votes at stake in Nevada. In Minnesota right now, Hillary Clinton has a pretty impressive lead of more than 116,000 votes over Donald Trump. 72% of the vote is in. She is ahead, looking comfortably in Minnesota. 10 electoral votes there. In Maine right now, 71% of the vote is in, and Hillary Clinton has a 15,000 vote lead over Donald Trump. Remember, Maine is one of 2 states where they divide their electoral votes according to congressional districts. Let's take a look at the electoral count where it stands right now. Donald Trump is ahead. He has 238 electoral votes to Hillary Clinton's 209 electoral votes. You need 270 to win the White House. All those yellow states out there, too early to call those states. Those are the states we are not yet able to make projections. We're watching all of those states very, very closely. So he's got a lead in the popular vote, and he's got a lead in the much more important electoral college vote right now.
And he did it exactly, he's doing it exactly the way that Donald Trump and his team said they were going to, which is by, well, actually, I should add a caveat to that. He is winning all these states that traditionally Republicans would go for, Mitt Romney, John McCain, such as Florida and North Carolina, and Iowa and Ohio. Even though John McCain and Mitt Romney were not able to win all of those states. But he is also seemingly at least giving a run for her money in the Rust Belt states that originally was what Donald Trump said he was going to do in order to win the presidency. So he's actually doing both. He's redrawing the map. He's taking the states that the Republicans traditionally pursue, North Carolina, Florida, Ohio, and giving her a run for her money in Pennsylvania. And also on top of that, going after the Rust Belt states where there are all these voters who are convinced that trade has been horrible for their communities, and whether they liked the offensive things Donald Trump said or they didn't care about the things that Donald Trump said, they are with him when it comes to draining the swamp and getting Washington, D.C. to focus more on these communities and their jobs.
He's clearly doing now, Dana, what he did during the Republican primary, surprising a lot of folks.
That's absolutely right. And look, we started out this evening, so many hours ago, talking about what to expect. And I talked about whether or not the Trump candidacy would awake a sleeping giant in the Latino community. Well, as we're looking at these numbers, the sleeping giant that seems to be waking up are white working class Americans.
Let me interrupt, Jake. Take a look at your home state of Pennsylvania right now. Look at Donald Trump has just gone ahead by 2,409 votes over Hillary Clinton with 92% of the vote in. They both have 48.2%, but he is now ahead by 2,400 plus votes over Hillary Clinton in your state. Or the Commonwealth, as we should call it.
The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And let me just, I don't know how many people remember this, but when I went to some of my old haunts in South Philadelphia during the Democratic convention, which was in Philadelphia, that's how important they thought Pennsylvania was, how important they thought Philadelphia was. I asked the guy that owns Termini Brothers, which is a great Italian pastry shop, who are people voting for here? Are they voting for Trump? Are they voting for Hillary? He said, we have a lot of leaners. I said, leaners? And he said, yeah, they lean into you. And they say, yeah, I think I might vote for Trump.
Yeah.
And enough of those people, if the margins in Philly end up being that Hillary Clinton only wins 80%, that sounds like a lot, but that's not how you need to win Philadelphia if you're going to win Pennsylvania. You need to have margins way higher than that. Those people actually, those leaners actually voted that way. And
Kellyanne Conway, Donald Trump's campaign manager, has been talking, who's a pollster by trade, has been talking about the hidden Trump vote. That it's out there, that people don't feel comfortable telling their pollsters, never mind their friends and family, that they're going to vote for Donald Trump. Well, just based on the data that we saw going into tonight, both the polling and some of the modeling, particularly the Democrats' modeling, she was right.
Yeah, that there was a hidden Trump vote. Now, whether people weren't telling pollsters or whether pollsters were just not anticipating the turnout that we've seen.
Yep.
One of the other things that's interesting is there are obviously millions of Americans who voted for Barack Obama in 2012 and voted for Donald Trump today, which is a fascinating thing given that Donald Trump is running as the anti-Obama in almost every possible way.
He's ahead of the popular vote nationwide.
That's right. That's true. And, that would be a fascinating book to write on the Obama-Trump voter. But there is one common thread, and that is change. Obama was, hope and change. Donald Trump's change message is a little bit different than that.
Drain the swamp.
Yeah, but it's still, they just are so sick of this place where we are, Washington, D.C. It doesn't work. They're not wrong. It doesn't work for them. They're especially not wrong. And you know what? Donald Trump, with all of his, flaws, every candidate has flaws, he's not one of them, and he can do things differently. Now, as we talk about this, we're talking about just the states where he's won and has surprised people, never mind the states where he is giving Hillary Clinton a run for her money that she didn't expect, especially a place like Wisconsin, which has seen job loss, and a place that has not come back as rapidly as other states.
It's really
Michigan too.
And Michigan too.
It's just remarkable because, I don't think we can overstate this. Not only Democrats and the Clinton campaign, not only pollsters and the mainstream media, but Republicans did not anticipate that this night was going to be this way. Very, very few people, I'm sure Donald Trump and his immediate circle of family and friends thought this, but very, very few people who were actually running these races anticipated that this night was going to be so strong for Donald Trump.
We've been hearing from the Republican National Committee, Dana, that they really went out and did a lot of stuff to get the vote out for Donald Trump that wasn't highly publicized, but clearly they must have done something right.
That's right. And I think the key is, and we talked about this a little bit before, it was to get the vote out for Donald Trump, but it was to get the ground game up and running in a way that would benefit any nominee, no matter who it was. And going into tonight, we thought maybe it wouldn't potentially be enough, but it was, and then some. So if you combine, frankly, the Trump, the RNC ground game with the Trump energy, which we know is huge, and, that made for the difference clearly in a lot of these states.
What also made the difference, at least in making it so close, and it is a real cliffhanger right now, in the last few weeks, Donald Trump was disciplined.
Yes.
He read his speeches from a teleprompter. He was barely tweeting except, go visit my rally, wherever it's going to be. He did what his advisors want him to do, and clearly, Jake, that paid off.
What's remarkable is that I think his fundamental core message, enough people just agreed with it, which is change is needed. Washington's broken. Things are not working the way they need to be. And while a lot of people in the media and a lot of Democrats and a lot of voters didn't like a lot of other things he said, clearly many millions of voters did, and they agreed with the fundamental message. They want their borders protected. They want to be protected from terrorists. They want their trade deals to help them and not help Wall Street and corporate America. And they want Washington fixed.
It's an amazing story right now. Whatever happens, it is, Dana, a truly amazing story.
I mean, just when we think we've covered the latest unbelievable thing that happens in the 2016
Hold on one moment.
race,
Take a look at this.
This is the latest.
In New Hampshire right now, look at this. Hillary Clinton has taken the lead in New Hampshire with 79% of the vote in by 18 votes. In New Hampshire, 18 votes. Let's go over to John King and talk a little bit about this. John, still 21% of the votes, so the precinct's outstanding right now, but she is ahead by 18 votes.
Another seesaw state, and again, this is going to depend mostly on Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. But if those states change some, then these four could come into play in the whole 265, 268, 269. Who can get to 270. At the moment, Donald Trump doesn't have that worry because of what's happening in the Midwest. But as we watch this play out, because we're not done yet, we're all dancing on this cliff together, she's ahead very narrowly. And so you keep looking and you say, what's missing? The reason she pulled ahead is I've been telling you all night, we're waiting for these votes out on the seacoast to come in. Portsmouth came in. They're all in. That's important to note. They're all in. But when they came in,
she's now ahead by 200 votes.
The race started to swing when those votes came in, and we're still waiting. It's 80% of the vote is in, but we got a lot of small towns still to report to us. And again, if you go back in time and look, watch how the map changes when I do this. What's missing is a lot of blue. If the state performs as it did in 2012. And we're not seeing that tonight in a lot of places. So this is a state the Clinton campaign knows very well. She has a history here. We'll see if in this state she can keep this very tiny lead that she has right now. And again, these four could become absolutely critical. The conversation a couple weeks ago was, could she win New Hampshire and add that to what people thought would be a convincing victory? Now, it is she, not Donald Trump, who is looking to draw.
Let's go to Nevada right now, see where it stands in Nevada, another important battleground state.
Nevada, 74% in. The map's filling in as you would expect in the sense that you have up here.
She's ahead, Hillary.
She's ahead out here right now. You go back and look, 47, underperforming the president, which has become a consistent thing all night. Another thing that we have a president of the United States, Wolf, who has a 55, 56, 57% approval rating, depending on what poll you look at, who campaigned furiously everywhere, including all of these key battleground states tonight, whose popularity does not seem to be transferable in the sense Hillary Clinton is the candidate on the ballot. I'm not trying to pin this on President Obama, but he worked so hard, and Michelle Obama worked so hard in North Carolina, in Florida, in these other swing states, and at the moment, it doesn't look like that was effective either, and that'll be part of the Obama legacy. If this holds up, the former cheerleader of the birther movement could be about to win the presidency, could be at the White House on Thursday as the president-elect of the United States.
In New Hampshire right now, she's now 99 votes ahead, 99 votes ahead of Donald Trump.
She'll take it if that holds in the sense, but 80% of the vote to go. So we still got some ways to go.
80% is counted, 20% to go.
80% is counted. I want to look. All the Democratic votes are in Concord. You come down here in Nashville. I looked earlier. We had all the Democratic votes in. So now we're going through. These are small towns throughout New Hampshire. We'll see how this vote comes in. And again, most of this bottom left quarter is traditionally Democratic, but Donald Trump is more than holding his own across the state of New Hampshire. This one's going to be a seesaw. Could take us a long time to count them. I want to come back out.
He spent a lot of time in New Hampshire.
He sure did. And remember, that was his first big primary win. Yeah. He lost in Iowa, had the big in New Hampshire. Corey Lewandowski, his first campaign manager, is from New Hampshire. Donald Trump was there on the last night of the campaign and was there twice, I believe, in the last weekend. So Donald Trump has a history in New Hampshire, and that will be one of the stories of this campaign. In the states where he campaigned hard and had a personal relationship, he's doing well. This one, very, very close. It was closer a few minutes ago. Trump has stretched that lead a little bit, but we're within a percentage point. He just did it again. So it's a full 1-point lead now at 74%. And again, we've been at 83% roughly for a long time in Wayne County. This is the last best hope of the Clinton campaign, is that when the rest of Detroit comes in, it's a big, giant dump of Democratic votes. Get to 74% and you see a lead like that, it's doable, but she now has to pull that off. come back from that and then come back here as well. And you see this lead is starting to stretch a little bit as we're up to 81% now. And again, we were told this would come right around now. We were told this would come at the bottom of the hour at 12:30 in the East, 11:30 local time. 60,000 absentee ballots in Milwaukee County, 11 wards that we've been at 87% for well over an hour now in the Milwaukee County. So when these votes come, when we go up from 87% here, we will see if the Clinton campaign's math, they've been telling us that what's missing is not only Democratic votes, but a huge swath of Democratic votes. We'll see when those votes come in. And the main thing you could do right now is just sit back and watch those three. Pennsylvania, Michigan,
well, let's go to Pennsylvania right now.
They stay red, forget about it.
Trump's back on top in Pennsylvania, at least right now. 92% of the vote is in, and look at how slight that lead is. What 2,000 votes or so in Pennsylvania out of more than 5 million that have been cast.
48.2 to 48.2. Yeah. It also tells you something that, you know, in these very close states, somebody is going to wake up tomorrow with a giant governing challenge, or maybe the day after if we're counting some of these states past tomorrow. But again, this is just a fundamental rewriting of the map, Wolf. In our lifetime, Pennsylvania has been a Democratic state. George H.W. Bush, 1988, the last time, the last last Republican to win that state. That also happens to be the last time a party that had a two-term presidency held office. That was part of Hillary Clinton.
We just saw on your map, New Hampshire went red again. That means Donald Trump has now taken the lead. He's up by what, 15
votes.
Yeah, 15 in votes. New Hampshire right now.
And again, we're laughing about this. The presidency could hinge on this, but you're going through a lot of these small towns where it's a very small, tiny amount of votes when they come in. We still have nothing in Sandwich, New Hampshire, for example. But let's pop up to the next one. You have these small towns. It's 150 to 99. So you'll see these swings when a town reports of 20, 30, 40, 50 votes. As we come up, we're at 81%, and we're going to count the rest of this one. And this is just stunning. It is stunning, and this is the most stunning. Again, a lot of people laughed at the Trump campaign when they said our path to the presidency was the Rust Belt, thinking that 1988, even longer than that. They made a run in Minnesota. Minnesota's going to hold for the Democrats, but a lot of people laughed at them. A lot of people even think it's with the dysfunction, as Dana noted earlier, the governor of Ohio not on your side. 52% of the vote.
He needed to win Ohio. He won Ohio.
52% of the vote. He won Ohio. Now we're gonna wait on these ones. We're gonna wait on this one, and we are in exactly the opposite position that we thought a couple of weeks ago we were going to be in. We thought at Trump campaign headquarters they would be sitting there trying to draw to an inside straight, trying to literally lightning strike it. We're talking about Powerball odds. Donald Trump, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. Well, look at that. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. We're not done yet, but the fact that, let's just check it, 92%, 48.2 to 48.2. We're talking about a tiny amount of votes. Let's just look around a little bit here and see what we're missing. 62% of the vote here, so Hillary Clinton with a big lead, so potentially some Democratic votes here. Let's come back in. Center City, Philadelphia is mostly in, and so 98% of the vote is in here, so there's not much to get there. This is the biggest area. And mathematically, that's about the number they said they thought they needed.
450,000 plus.
But what they're seeing is, and she's actually, the story of Pennsylvania is almost always turnout in Philadelphia and then the collar counties. Hillary Clinton's not, percentage-wise, not doing that horribly. She's actually performing about right, if you will, for a Democratic model. But she is getting swamped out here in these rural counties where you have not only Donald Trump winning these counties, but winning them, and some of them won by Obama, some of them he's overperforming Romney, and substantially so, Wolf.
We have another major projection right now. CNN now projects that Hillary Clinton will carry the state of Nevada with its 6 electoral votes. Hillary Clinton wins in Nevada. 74% of the vote is in. She's got a 32,000 plus vote lead. She carries Nevada. Take a look at the count for the electoral college map right now. Trump has 238 votes. Hillary Clinton has 215. You need 270. We're still waiting on the Rust Belt to come in. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Election Night in America is brought to you by CA Technologies. Go to CNNPolitics.com for more about this momentous election and download the CNN Politics app from the App Store, built with CA Technologies.
Back in the good old days, things were just better.
I feel lucky I wasn't alive 40 years ago. It sounds awful.
The American dream was still alive.
People just got married and had kids and worked the same job for like forever.
We valued hard work.
Those old rules don't work for me.
Now, too many unreasonable expectations.
I don't believe in anyone telling me how I should live my life. Unless it's a way to pay off my student loan debt.
Skinny caramel macchiatos. What happened to coffee? Kale.
Back then, technology was a self-cleaning oven.
I like things the way they were, except my apps. Those I'd like to be cutting edge.
I do, however, believe in a world with really great apps. Hey, Earl.
Hey, Dave. See my post?
Yeah, it's funny.
In the application economy, there's one thing everyone agrees on.
Any excuse to come to Japan is a good one.
A sushi legend is taking Tony where it all started.
Oh, man.
What's a beer?
Cheers.
Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown, Japan, Sunday at 9 on CNN.
When your skin is feeling dry and crinkly, time for Gold Bond Healing Lotion. A modern formula packed with 7 moisturizers and 3 vitamins. Leaves skin nourished, healed, healthy looking, so you feel good as new. Gold Bond, ultimate lotion, ultimate skin.
This is me living with back pain. And this is me treating back pain with Icy Hot Smart Relief.
Smart Relief from Icy Hot starts blocking pain immediately at the nerve level.
I'm so jealous of me right now. Turn off pain with Icy Hot Smart Relief.
When you stole the throne, witch, you took away my strongest ally, my father. But you didn't know me. You never thought I'd fight back. You don't know me. But you will.
So it begins.
Rated M for mature.
This is Life with Lisa Lang. New episodes, Sundays at 10 on CNN.
Still waiting to make projections in 9 states, but let's take a look at this key race alert right now, where it stands. Michigan with its 16 electoral votes. Donald Trump continuing to maintain his lead of almost 34,000 votes over Hillary Clinton, with 75% of the vote in. Trump still ahead in Michigan. In Wisconsin, 83% of the vote is in. He's got a better lead there, 86,000 votes over Hillary Clinton, 10 electoral votes at stake in Wisconsin. In Arizona, Trump is ahead by nearly 60,000 votes, with 64% of the vote in, 11 electoral votes at stake in Arizona. Trump doing well in that state. In New Hampshire right now, it's a cliffhanger. Look at this. Trump is ahead by 864 votes. Let me repeat that. 864 votes. He's got 47.5%. She has 47.4%. 81% of the vote is in. Those 4 electoral votes could be critical in New Hampshire. Let's take a look at some more states right now. In Utah, 29% of the vote is in. Trump maintains a pretty healthy lead of 81,000 votes over both Hillary Clinton and Evan McMullin, the third-party conservative. In Pennsylvania, 93% of the vote is in, and Trump has a lead of more than 25,000 votes over Hillary Clinton, 20 electoral votes at stake in Pennsylvania. In Minnesota, 77% of the vote is in. Hillary Clinton has an impressive lead of almost 90,000 votes over Donald Trump, 48.1% to 44%, 10 electoral votes in Minnesota right now. In Maine, 75% of the vote is in. Hillary Clinton has a lead of more than 17,000 votes over Donald Trump. Let's take a look at the all-important Electoral College map, where it stands right now. Donald Trump is ahead. He has 238 electoral votes to 215 for Hillary Clinton. You need 270 to win the White House. Those yellow states are states that we have not yet made projections. Still too early to call. Anderson, over to you.
Well, thanks very much. Let's go to Jeffrey Lord, Kayleigh McEnany, both Trump supporters. I mean, all along, Jeffrey, from the beginning, we have talked about how Donald Trump, from the beginning, has rewritten the rules of politics. And there was a lot of question about whether Hillary Clinton, with all her big data, with all of her alleged ground game, would simply just swamp Donald Trump with his huge rallies, but apparently a lack of a ground game.
She was the Jeb Bush of the Democratic Party, and she was the face of the establishment. As I said last night, when we saw those folks on that stage in front of Independence Hall in Philadelphia, and everybody's remarking about, you know, his history and her history and all this sort of thing. And I said, look, if you're sitting there in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania, which is where I live, you're looking at these people and seeing there's a bunch of insiders there. and they're all scratching one another's backs, and they're making millions of dollars in the case of the Clintons, so alleged, and they're just sick of the whole. They're sick of the whole thing. One other thing, I have in front of me here a New York Times article from December 16th of 1976, in which Ronald Reagan.
I knew you were going to go back in history tonight.
Exactly.
I wanted you to.
I mean, because I keep trying to say that it's important that Ronald Reagan said after the defeat of Gerald Ford that he was going to rebuild the Republican Party by courting conservatives who now call themselves Democrats and independents. That is exactly what Donald Trump was about in this. And that's why that Rust Belt strategy, which is exactly what worked for Ronald Reagan.
And Kayleigh, I mean, all along, in the face of all these polls, which the pollsters seemed to be just wrong, certainly in the electoral college path, you were saying that there were hidden Trump voters out there, that there was sort of this hidden enthusiasm for Trump beyond what we were seeing, the visible enthusiasm we were seeing. Democrats were saying there's going to be this huge outpouring of Latino vote. It's going to make up all the difference. But a lot of people voted for Donald Trump.
Yes, it's looking increasingly like we have a Brexit on our hands. And there were these voters out there that were afraid to talk to pollsters. And Anderson, I think the American people right now are sending a loud, clear, unmistakable message. They want their government back. This is supposed to be a government of, by, and for the people. It's increasingly become one of, by, and for the elite. This is the people rising up saying it's time to listen to us. It's time to listen to us in Michigan and Wisconsin and work for the people. It's not about personal enrichment. It's about public service. And that is what we were seeing. Donald Trump ran against Republicans. He ran against Democrats. He ran against the elite. He ran against the government. He ran against the media. But he was an unmistakable voice for the people.
Also, they put a lot of signs in their yards.
Right. You should start a sign company, because that was your poll, which in Pennsylvania, certainly your state. But there's been so much focus on probably among a lot of Democrats about what went wrong on the Democratic side. But you shouldn't take away from what Donald Trump has accomplished from the moment he entered this race. I mean, again, just redefining the way somebody runs.
I mean, one of the things that I thought was the sort of overweening arrogance of a lot of elites were the terribly off-base descriptions of Donald Trump, that he's a racist and a xenophobe and he's this and he's that. Here is a guy that I felt right from the get-go was a highly successful, highly accomplished businessman who knew how to relate to average people, to working class Americans. And the problem is they believed their own message, and they were totally wrong.
Well, there's still a lot of people out there in the country tonight who still have that belief about Donald Trump, man.
Well, look, first of all, congratulations. Both of you guys were...
We're not there yet.
Well, you're further than anybody said you would be. And I have enough class, and I was raised well enough to say when you outdo...
Yes, sir. Thank you.
When you outdo expectations, good for you. But there's another side to this. People have talked about a miracle. I'm hearing about a nightmare. It's hard to be a parent tonight for a lot of us. You tell your kids, don't be a bully. You tell your kids, don't be a bigot. You tell your kids, do your homework and be prepared. And then you have this outcome, and you have people putting children to bed tonight, and they're afraid of breakfast. They're afraid of, how do I explain this to my children? I have Muslim friends who are texting me tonight saying, should I leave the country? I have families of immigrants that are terrified tonight. This was many things. This was a rebellion against the elites. True, it was a complete reinvention of politics and polls, it's true. But it was also something else. We've talked about race. I mean, we've talked about everything but race tonight. We've talked about income. We've talked about class. We've talked about region. We haven't talked about race. This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president in part. And that's the part where the pain comes. And Donald Trump has a responsibility tonight to come out and reassure people that he is going to be the president of all the people who he insulted and offended and brushed aside. Yeah, when you say, you want to take your country back, you got a lot of people who feel that we're not represented well either. But we don't want to feel that someone has been elected by throwing away some of us to appeal more deeply to others. So this is a deeply painful moment tonight. I know it's not just about race. There's more going on than that. But race is here too. We got to talk about it.
Well, and whoever wins tonight, I mean, there is such polarization in this country. Whoever wins is going to have a very hard time in convincing the other half of the country that they can be their president as well.
That's what I thought I knew yesterday, that I had no idea how deep the divisions are, how real the pain is. And let me say, echoing Van, Kayleigh and Jeffrey were right about that. You saw it in a way that I didn't see it in the data, and you deserve to have credit for that. And maybe Hillary hangs on and wins. Maybe Mr. Trump wins. We still don't know. It's really in the balance.
Right.
But irrespective, the pain, and Van just gave beautiful poetic voice to the pain on our side. But Donald Trump was giving voice to some really spectacular pain on his side. And that's, I think, what's causing this. When Jeb Bush, who you mentioned, got trounced by Trump, he said, I don't do anger very well. Well, this is a time of anger. Of course, that anger comes from pain. And Trump saw that, and he gave voice to it.
He also reached across lines, though, that Republican candidates haven't reached across before. He made a direct appeal to the African-American community. He made a direct appeal to a whole group of voters, those in the inner cities who have been left behind, who haven't heard from candidates in decades on either sides of the aisle. And he took his message to them and said, I feel your pain, and I'm going to be there.
Listen, we're gonna have to hold hands now. This is gonna be tough. We'll have to look and see if those people heard it the way you heard it, and if they voted for him. The problem that we have is that there is real pain in the country. Look, Hillary Clinton had to put down a rebellion in her own party. There was a rebellion in her own party along these lines, the Bernie Sanders rebellion, and she put that rebellion down. And she was able to co-opt and pull some of it, but there was still heartburn and rug burn there. There's healing that has to happen in the Democratic Party. There has to be a real conversation about what happened in that primary. And there's pain, economic pain in your party. But you do yourself a disservice, and I don't want either of you to be naive. There are people in your party for whom this was also a vote against political correctness, which for some of them means a vote against these others. And we're going to need your help to heal that. And if I can't acknowledge the elitism in my party, and you can't acknowledge some of the bigotry in your party, we're never going to get there.
Donald Trump's going to be a voice for all the people. He said that from day one.
He will make it his first objective to bring people together. I have not the slightest doubt about it. I mean, he's said it, but I certainly believe him. I mean, I've seen that in him all along.
We're going to have to work together.
But let's bring in the other side as well.
I just want to talk about some of the things that we watched tonight. We saw lower African American turnout, Van. I mean, you were seeing that. We also saw that 65% of Latinos voted for Hillary Clinton, but 29% voted for Donald Trump. That is more than Mitt Romney got. So you have to think about that. You have to think about that.
And more than many Democratic Latinos certainly thought that Donald Trump
Young
could get.
voters, also, we've known Hillary Clinton has had a problem with young voters. She got a majority of young voters, but 37% of them, according to the exit polls we're looking at now, voted for Donald Trump. Now, when I've been talking to some Democratic strategists who are pro-Clinton this evening, they blamed what's going on this evening. And again, we don't know the result, but they blame the closeness of the race, let me put it that way, on two things. On the Comey interference a couple weeks ago, and on the third-party candidates. And I've been communicating with them saying that's not enough.
Isn't it easy? Isn't it easy to just blame Comey for changing the conversation?
As a Clinton person, let me say that's far too tactical.
Exactly.
There's something really big going on.
Right.
And there is an earthquake going on, and they're saying, well, it's a washing machine.
Right.
No, it's plate tectonic.
So you combine it with the race issues, you combine it with rural Americans who came out and voted, the sort of Brexit, hidden voters. You combine it with class issues, which were so important.
There's a reason this is going on all over the world.
Right.
All over the fact is that there are convulsive, sort of revolutionary changes going on in our economy that are driven largely by technology and globalization that have benefited, that have grown economies and have benefited some people and have displaced others. And for not just a few years, but for several decades, politicians have been acknowledging this and saying, we're going to do something about it. And people don't feel as if that's happening. And meanwhile, all of these forces churn at a faster pace. So you see the same kinds of forces in Britain, in Germany, in France.
But it's so interesting. I mean, Michael Mercado, David was on the program the other night talking about how, well, the polling here is better than in England, where they didn't know what the Brexit result was going to be. Clearly, if this path continues that Donald Trump is on and he becomes the next president, and this is, to Kayleigh's point, a Brexit-like effect, the polling missed it.
Yeah. Can I amend my comment?
Yeah.
I've immersed myself in all of that data and have talked extensively about it here and on radio for weeks. The only poll that I'm aware of that nailed it, perhaps, I want to stay in my lane because it's not over yet, is that USC LA Times Dornsife survey, which, different than all the others, had the same sample group. They had 3,000 people, and instead of going to a new sample group each and every week, they went back to the same 3,000. Let me say one other point, if I might, to what Van has said. Whether it's tonight or whether it's tomorrow, whenever this wraps up, we are about to listen to the most consequential acceptance and speech of someone who lost an election, whoever may wear those crowns. And wow, is there a real need for leadership from those folks now to extend olive branches, whomever wins, and try and put this
Donald Trump early on during the primaries would say a lot in interviews that he can be presidential, he can change his tone. He, in Palm Beach, is a different person than he was elsewhere. And I think we're going to see as a country what, if in fact he takes the Oval Office, what that actually
what that
means.
looks like. And we've seen some of that, right? In these last couple of weeks or so, he was teleprompter Trump. He was different. I mean, he was able to stay on schedule and stay on message, sometimes coaxing himself out loud to do that.
The question is Obamacare, the Supreme Court.
Listen, I think this is a very consequential event.
Yeah.
All of those things now, I think, are in question. I mean, I believe on Obama, I don't want to start a debate on this now. 20 million people have health care, and there are guarantees in our health law, such as prohibition against banning people with pre-existing conditions, that are important to Americans. It's going to be more complicated to unwind that some believe, but there's no doubt the Supreme Court, this is a very consequential election. But I just want to say one thing about this, just having served in the White House, and I know, Paul, you've done that as well, Van, you spent some time there. The things that get you elected are not the things, there's a different requirement now. There's a huge responsibility. Every single day, every single hour, you're dealing with consequential questions that impact on people's lives, and you have to make those decisions in the best interest of the entire country. It's not about reading from a teleprompter. It's not about, handling this question or that question in a way that gets you the best political advantage. These are life and death, grave questions for people in this country and around the world. This is a big responsibility.
And if there is a Republican Senate and a Republican House and a Republican president, the question is, how will they work together? Because some of these senators will have ridden in on Donald Trump's coattails, which they never expected to do.
We've got a quick update on Wisconsin. I want to go to Wolf and John for that.
All right. Thanks very much, John. We're taking a very close look at Wisconsin right now. 85% of the vote is in, and Donald Trump continues to maintain his lead of about 90,000 votes over Hillary Clinton, 15% of the vote outstanding.
90,000 votes, and we've been saying, and the Clinton campaign is telling us they expect a big basket of those votes to come from here in Milwaukee. Now, this is what we have right now, 87%. We've been stuck there for some time. We're waiting for the feed to come in here, but on the Secretary of State's website, they have updated the numbers in Wisconsin. Forgive me for coming across. I'm left-handed. One of the perils of being left-handed on a night like this, but here are the latest numbers. You see Clinton at 214 right there. The new numbers are 235. 247, and Donald Trump is at 117,450, and this is 99.58% of the vote. She made up a very tiny. This is what, if you look at the map here, this is now 117,000 vote difference in Milwaukee. If you look at it there, she didn't make up that many votes. We were looking for a huge basket of votes out of here for her to make it up. When you come back out and add that into the state total, it is nowhere near what she needed. Nowhere, and that's at 99.5% now. It's not even close. It'll make up some of that gap, but nowhere near. So the question then is, are there other Democratic votes out there somewhere? Got to turn the telestrator off to bring this out. The last place we're looking is Dane County is the last big one. We're at 82%, but it doesn't strike me as a big enough population center. We're still going to wait to count these as you look, but we'll wait till we get the official update to feed into the wall. We're still at 87%, but this is 99.58% in Milwaukee. And you simply do not, the question was, could she have this giant leap in the math out of Milwaukee County, in the spread out of Milwaukee County to make a big difference? And these numbers simply aren't enough to do that.
Basically the same ratio as before.
Right.
Not much difference.
Not much difference at all. Her ratio actually goes down a little bit to 62.5%. The main point is the math here, and it's just not enough. She makes up, in the vote count, she gains a little bit, but when you bring it out and you try to add it into that,
We'll see what happens in Madison. That's a liberal Democratic stronghold in Wisconsin. Let's take a look at Michigan.
Move over to Michigan. Still at 77% here, and it's a close race. And we're in the same calculation we've been in before. Again, when you talk to the Clinton War Room, they tell us, just relax. We're going to see some votes come out of here. We're still at 85%, so there's still more votes to come out of Detroit, Wayne County and Detroit, and she does have a huge lead there, obviously. So if it's a big chunk of votes, it'll affect the math. We've been waiting a long time. Not unusual that it comes in late. And this is close. This one is closer than the race in Wisconsin.
About 57,000 votes.
Right, closer than. So you look over here. Is it doable? Okay, but let's see them. And you're starting to see Ingham County now is up to 94%. Again, she'll get some more votes out of that. But you're looking at these leads for Donald Trump. They're relatively small, but they have been persistent and they have held. And the Wisconsin news, that Milwaukee news, to me is, and we will watch and see if the rest of this comes in. I'm just going to look 84%, but it's nowhere near the population center of Milwaukee. So you see these Democratic areas where you still have some votes, but can they swing it enough to change that? That's almost a 4-point race or a 3-point race. I don't see it at the moment. We'll see when the rest of these votes come in, but you don't see the math there in the state of Wisconsin as you go through.
So we've done Michigan, we've done Wisconsin. What about Pennsylvania?
So I was just going to touch New Hampshire, which has been rocketing back and forth, 47.5 to 47.4. One thing, I was just in touch with some Republicans up here. I just want to show you Derry, New Hampshire. It's out. We have no votes there. This was a very big area for Mitt Romney 4 years ago. The Trump people are telling me they expect to get a big run-up of the vote here. You move down here to Salem, New Hampshire. These are the two big population centers left. Again, relatively small towns in New Hampshire, but 2.5% of the state population there was a big Romney area. 2% of the state population here, also a big Romney area. The Trump people are very confident they're going to do very well in those two counties in New Hampshire. And so their expectation is that they can hold on. She's in the slight lead now. The Trump expectation is they can come back. We'll see if that turns out to be true. But again, another seesaw.
Got a lead of about 25 votes. It's not very much.
25. This is what we're going through in New Hampshire right now. And here we are again back here. And you start looking at this right now. And another incredibly close state. The challenge becomes...
She's losing by about 50,000 votes.
50,000 votes.
With 96% of the vote.
96%. You look at a giant state like Pennsylvania, you think, that's a pretty small lead, but you start looking, what's left? And we're at 100% here in a place she's winning. We're at 100% here in a place she's winning, but by nowhere near the margin she needed to win, which has been a consistent story throughout the night. Let's come out here. We're at 100% here in a place she's winning, but again, by a very narrow margin. And so you keep asking, are there Democratic votes out there? Allegheny County was not this high the last time we checked. Yes, she's winning by a healthy margin there, but there's nothing left, or not much left to count. And so you keep looking, you're looking at this map and you're saying, are there any here in the population centers? 93%, Lehigh County. She's winning, but not by a lot. There's some math there, enough to make up that lead. We'll watch Bucks County here in the suburbs. This is more populous. There are some votes here, but look how close it is. So, as the rest of the results comes in, if the margins stay the same, 99% is in Montgomery County, 95% in Chester County. Let's move closer in toward the city. Delaware County is up to 98%. The city of Philadelphia is up to 98%. Wolf, if you're looking at this map and you're thinking, where can I squeeze some more Democratic votes to make that up? My answer is, I don't know. I don't see it.
Anderson, it's really a remarkable development, historic development, what's unfolding right now. It's not over yet. We're watching every state, every electoral vote.
Without a doubt, probably one of the most momentous nights in American political history, certainly modern American political history. I mean, first of all, Corey Lewandowski is joining us. Congratulations on what has been just an extraordinary night, whatever the end result is. To you, has anything surprised you tonight? Because all along you were saying there's a hidden vote that the polls aren't showing, that the whole notion of big data, Hillary Clinton's huge, highly expensive operation a la Jeb Bush, getting out the vote, that's the old model, Donald Trump is the new model, and it certainly seemed to work tonight.
Well, what we're not talking about is how many offices Donald Trump has in the state of Florida. I guess it's not relevant anymore. What we are talking about is why did the electorate do what they did tonight? And I think what we have said from day one is that Donald Trump represents a fundamental change to Washington, D.C. And for 30 years, elected officials, both Republicans and Democrats, have made promises that they haven't kept. They have brought us into a greater deficit where we've got almost $21 trillion in debt. We're leaving our country in a worse shape than our parents left it for us for the first time in the history of our country. And what people have said was, we don't want that anymore. We don't want people who make promises that have, the most extensive credentials ever to serve as the President of the United States. People don't want that. They want someone who's going to tell them the truth, that's going to go and do what they say they're going to do, to bring fundamental change, and let the people decide how the country is run. That's what we're seeing tonight, is the people have listened to what the media said. They've listened to the narrative of how great the other side was, how everybody is going to join, and how the Hispanics are going to come out in record proportion, how Donald Trump is a misogynist and a bigot, and all the things that we've heard the mainstream media talk about. And they've stepped back and said, you don't understand. We are tired of Washington, D.C. We're tired of broken promises. We're tired of people going there and forgetting about us. And we want wholesale and fundamental change. That's what's taking place.
Well, Jeffrey, I mean, it also looks like he will have a Republican House, a Republican Senate. I mean, right. the potential for him to affect his policies is great. But there are, of course, real divisions within the Republican Party. Right. I mean, some of the,
and they will, and some of them will.
They're going to start to have to use his name.
Right. I mean, yes, they are. I'm looking for that.
Much more likely tomorrow, I think.
Right, I'm sure.
One of the things I remember attending as a White House staff meeting is the National Governors Association's meetings, and I think they're in February, and they come to the White House for a meeting and a glittery dinner. I'm just waiting to see Governor Kasich greet President Trump.
Well, I mean, the meeting, there's a traditional meeting between, it would be between,
on Thursday.
Right, on Thursday between President Obama and the President-elect.
Right.
I mean, to be a fly on the wall during that meeting.
Exactly. Well, I mean, change is at hand here. And I keep going back to Reagan for a purpose, because he was the last president, certainly on the Republican side, to bring that kind of change and face that kind of resistance, not only as he sought the nomination and ran for election, but once he got there.
I guess one of the questions, obviously, is how capable, I mean, a lot of promises are made during an election. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump has talked about things as a negotiation, and that, some of the conservative criticism of him early on was that, that too much is up for negotiation with him. Negotiation or compromise can be a dirty word in Washington. The wall of reversing Obamacare, the Supreme Court, how much can he actually do, and as quickly as he said?
Well, remember at one point, Paul Ryan met with Donald Trump and came out basically saying, or his aides basically said, what Donald Trump said, just help me get elected, and then we'll use your agenda. Okay, we will use your agenda. I think Paul Ryan is going to hold him to that. And I think that I've just heard from a Republican who said that there could be a populist conservative governing coalition if they can all get on the same page. And I think the fact, again, as we were saying before, that Donald Trump had coattails, that he brought in some of these Republicans into Congress who are very worried about their jobs, that they now owe him something.
Right.
Look, and that they will. The question is, what do they do to the Obama legacy? Mm-hmm. What do they do with Obamacare? What do they do about the premium increases, which Donald Trump has spoken about? What do they do about trade? Do they withdraw from the TPP right away? What do they do about the wall? These are things that Republicans have disagreed on.
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of ways to think about it. If you're kind of looking for now, what happens now? How do you think about this? I think if you're a progressive, there are three areas where you might try to figure out something positive. First of all, the fact that now Trump is going to own healthcare. He's going to own healthcare for at least 20 million people. And the Republicans can't just sort of stand back and let the bad parts of Obamacare go on unchecked just because they want to stick it on Obama. The Republicans are now going to have to really step up and do something. That could wind up being a positive. We just don't know. Secondly, he made a bunch of promises about urban investment and urban renewal and empowerment, et cetera. I think he should be held to those kinds of promises, and let's see if he's actually serious about those things. And then lastly, this whole question around trade. I think for the left wing of the Democratic Party, there's probably something there that can make some kind of sense. I think there are three things that are just irredeemably bad that we are going to have to resist this president on as progressives. One is all the stuff around immigration and the Muslim bashing. If that becomes a serious part of his presidency, there will be a big, big pushback from decent people in this country who do not want to see that type of rhetoric and agenda coming from Washington, D.C. Secondly, the Supreme Court is going to be a massive fight. And lastly, which we haven't talked about, is this whole question of climate and whether or not we're going to be able to make real progress on climate and climate change. The last thing I want to say, because I don't know if I get a chance to talk again, there are people around the world who are watching this. They are appalled, they are shocked, they are surprised. The markets are showing it, and there's some people who are laughing, and some of them are in the Kremlin. This is not just the first election in which you had a woman running and a business person running. This is the first election in which an enemy power deliberately and explicitly interfered in our election and got away with it. And they interfered in our election in a one-sided way. They didn't hack Democrats. They didn't hack Republicans. They hacked Democrats. And we're going to have to figure out now, what is our relationship to Russia going forward? And if Russia got away with it this time, what if the Chinese do it to the Republicans next time? We are now living in a completely different context from a national security point of view. That needs to be talked about.
Jeffrey, assuming Donald Trump becomes the president, do you think, and I mean, he's already talked about, there's been some talk about who would be his attorney general, who would be his secretary of state. Do you see him reaching out to kind of a diverse group of Republicans or whomever to kind of form a cabinet? Where do you see?
Yes. I mean, again, the model for me, which was instantly clear to me as I got to know him, is his own company. I mean, he has a lot of people there, a lot of very different people who are very talented in A, B, or C areas that he brings in to accomplish tasks. That's what he will do. I mean, he's an executive. He has an executive's mind. I have no doubt whatsoever. Now, will he, as any president should, having won an election, want to steer the country in the direction that he promised he would steer it? Sure. Will he try to find people who will do that in these individual cabinet departments? And the age-old problem in Washington is presidents appoint people to run departments, and then they wind up doing it the reverse. They wind up representing the department to the president instead of representing the president and the people to the department. But yes, I'm sure he will do this.
Paul? Yeah, that may well be, but I would point out, first off, the election's not over.
Right, well, right.
We're in play.
Exactly.
And it seems to me, just back of the envelope math, highly likely that Hillary Clinton wins the popular vote, irrespective of even if Mr. Trump can pull off this Rust Belt states. Only 24% of the vote in California is in. She's likely to win that overwhelmingly. Washington, Oregon. So you could very well be in a situation, we know, no matter who wins, that this country is deeply, deeply divided. And that has been the case for many years. We had, when Bill Clinton was sworn in, it was on the book of the prophet Isaiah, and thou shalt be called healer of the breach. Then the next president had 2 terms. He said, I want to be a uniter, not a divider. Then the next president had 2 terms, and he said, there are no red states, no blue states, there are only the United States. And yet still, despite 24 years of 3 very different presidents, all talking about that divide and trying to address it, it is deeper and more painful than ever. And yes, he'll have this on trade, we'll have this about Russia, but more fundamentally, the pain here is so spectacular that it's going to take a real miracle.
We've got another projection from Wolf.
All right, we do have another major projection right now. All right, Donald Trump, we project, will be the winner in the state of Utah. With its 6 electoral votes, Donald Trump carries another state. You see the popular vote there. Donald Trump ahead. He's got a 113,000 vote lead over both Evan McMullin, who looks like he's second place right now with 41% of the vote, and Hillary Clinton right now 82,000 votes in third place. Let's take a look at the Electoral College count where it stands right now with this Donald Trump win in Utah. Right now, Donald Trump is ahead, inching closer and closer to 270 electoral votes. He now has 244 electoral votes compared to Hillary Clinton's 215 electoral votes. Donald Trump doing very, very well tonight. It's 270, though. That's the magic number. Let's take a look in a key race alert at the numbers coming in right now. remaining states. We'll start with Michigan right now. 80% of the vote is now in. Trump has an impressive lead of 77,000 plus votes over Hillary Clinton. There are 16 electoral votes in Michigan. Trump ahead. In Wisconsin, 87% of the vote is in. Similarly, he has an impressive 84,000 vote lead over Hillary Clinton. 10 electoral votes at stake in Wisconsin. In Arizona, Trump again leading, 60,000 vote lead over Hillary Clinton with 65% of the vote in. Arizona has 11 electoral votes. In Pennsylvania, look at this, 97% of the vote is in. Trump is ahead by almost 51,000 votes over Hillary Clinton. There are 20 electoral votes at stake in Pennsylvania. Trump doing very well in Pennsylvania right now. Let's take a look at some more states where we have not made projections. In New Hampshire, Hillary Clinton is ahead, but by only 700 votes over Donald Trump, with 85% of the vote in. 4 electoral votes in New Hampshire. In Maine, 81% of the vote is in. Hillary Clinton has a lead of almost 17,000 votes over Donald Trump in the state of Maine. Finally, take a look at this in Minnesota. 84% of the vote is in. Hillary Clinton has a pretty good 71,000 vote lead over Donald Trump. 84% of the vote in. Minnesota has 10 electoral votes. Let's go over to Jake and Dana. The numbers clearly right now, Jake, are in Donald Trump's favor.
Absolutely. Hillary Clinton needs to win Michigan. She needs to win New Hampshire. She needs to win Pennsylvania. Right now, she's only ahead in one of those states with almost all of the vote in. It's really stunning. And Van has been talking about some of the dimensions of this race, some of the social dimensions that have people who supported Hillary Clinton very upset this evening. But let's take a moment and talk about the outsider nature of the campaign that Donald Trump waged and looks like he might win, having to do with how dissatisfied the American people are with Washington, D.C., with institutions that they think are failing them. Institutions, whether it is the Justice Department and the government of Washington, D.C., whether they're political or career individuals, and how they are not serving the purposes of the American people. That's one. And then a second one I think is very significant, and we haven't really talked about it at all, and that is the role of the United States in the world. You could make the argument that Donald Trump is somebody who has talked about how he thinks that we have been involved in too many entanglements in other countries, and Hillary Clinton has been defending that sort of thing. It's one of the reasons why a lot of veterans anecdotally supported Donald Trump, in addition to the fact that many of them are just conservative Republicans, and that is they agree with the idea that we shouldn't be involved in too many countries overseas. We should be focused more on the United States. There are a lot of policy dimensions to this. Van's touching on some of the social dimensions to this, but there are a lot of policy dimensions to this. And then, of course, there's trade and the idea that the trade deals that might be very, very lucrative to corporations and to Wall Street have not been as lucrative and successful for people in Ohio, for people in Michigan, for people in Pennsylvania, the states that today are really rising up and saying, not so fast, Washington, D.C.
And Dan, I know you're in touch with folks in the Trump campaign. What are you hearing?
Well, a little bit of news that I'm told that Donald Trump and his campaign did prepare 2 speeches, as we were told earlier by our Clinton team, that Hillary Clinton did, a victory speech and a concession speech, and he is preparing and hoping to give that victory speech. So what will be in it? I'm told that he will be gracious, that he will to speak to what Van was talking about before, and also Michael and others about the tone of these speeches being so important. We'll talk about coming together. We'll reach out to those who didn't vote for him. So that is the tone that I'm told he will set in this speech. And we'll see what specific words he uses and, how specific he gets, whether he says specifically Hillary Clinton's voters, please understand, I know you didn't support me, but come my way. But the overall tone is going to be that, and the other is gratitude.
That's what the victory
speech.
Yes. But that's what the victors usually say. They reach out, they try to be gracious, they encourage the losing presidential candidate to be gracious as well.
It's true. This is anything but a usual campaign and campaign season, right down to the speeches. So it is, I think, noteworthy to hear, particularly given how incredibly divisive this has been, that if he does get that magic 270 tonight, if those Rust Belt states go his way, not to mention Pennsylvania, that is the theme and the tone and the tenor I'm told he will set.
And what's impressive, very impressive, not only is ahead in the electoral college map, but popular vote he is ahead in the popular vote. I think about 54 million Americans have voted for him, maybe 1 million more than voted for Hillary Clinton nationwide. That is so impressive right now.
It's big, but as you note, it's right now. We still have yet to see what happens in California and some of the western states. But just to touch on what Dan has said in terms of the speech, whoever wins this evening, there is a huge responsibility for that man or that woman to reach out not only to the people who voted for his or her opponent, but to the people who don't like him or her. If Donald Trump wins, I think there is going to be, in addition to his celebration and the victory lap that he has every right to take, there are people who were really bothered by things like when he made fun of that disabled reporter. And he really has an obligation, especially if he wants to be a successful president. And I know he wants to be a successful anything that he tries to do. He wants to succeed at. There is an opportunity now for the country to heal, for the country to come together, whether Hillary Clinton wins or Donald Trump wins. And I really hope that the victor does actually take that opportunity to try to unite the country after this extremely brutal election.
The onus is also on the person who doesn't win.
Absolutely.
To do that.
Absolutely.
And you know, we remember in 2008, John McCain's concession speech was probably one of the best speeches he ever gave in his life because it was so gracious in telling the people who supported him to please support the next president. And because, again, this has been so divisive, so tough, so intense, it is maybe even more important for the person giving the concession speech to give that message to their supporters.
We'll see what time the victory speech happens and the concession speech happens. We're going to be watching all of that so closely. It's still not over yet. They're still counting votes. Anderson, back to you.
Yeah, well, thanks very much. In terms of what happens in the coming weeks for whoever the president-elect is, in terms of a transition team, I mean, some of them have, I assume both sides, and certainly the Clinton side has already, they have people in place. I know Donald Trump has named as well. What is the process for that?
Well, Chris Christie is running the transition
problem.
for Donald Trump, and that's a problem. And he also hasn't been particularly visible of late with Donald Trump because of the whole Bridgegate trial, et cetera. But they have been running a full-bore transition. I think in terms of Hillary Clinton, when you were dealing with an Obama administration who had been here, Democrats, the transition might have been a little smoother and a lot easier than if it is President Trump, then the Obama team would have dealing with the President Trump's team who wants to actually undo everything that President Obama has done in office.
It is interesting also when you have President Obama with the highest approval ratings I guess of his presidency, well, probably not of his presidency, but it's certainly for a president at this stage.
Yes. There with Reagan.
And certainly was out there on the campaign trail an awful lot. I mean, to not be able to, he was able to get himself elected, but he didn't have great coattails certainly for Hillary Clinton.
Well, obviously, I'm sure he's deeply disappointed tonight. I haven't spoken to him, but he campaigned very, very vigorously. He felt very strongly about it. But my guess is that they will meet on Thursday because that is the obligation of the outgoing president to try and affect a transition to the next administration. We've done it for a couple of centuries, and I'm sure he'll feel a responsibility to do it. Let me just make a couple of points, though. One of the things that I'm going to be watching, you talk about people were swept in on his coattails and so on. Some of them were incumbents who were reelected. There are many members, or there are more than a few members of Congress who didn't endorse him of his own party. Paul Ryan separated himself from Donald Trump and excoriated him in very, very sharp terms several times. They don't have the same agendas in many ways. The notion of, I'll be interested to see. I can't think of a time when you had a president who was so at odds with so much of his own base, because ultimately he ran against the Washington establishment, and Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan and some of those guys, they're part of the Washington establishment.
But now they're going to have to deal with them, and they're going to have to figure out what part of the Trump agenda works with what they want to do. I mean, as Donald Trump always says, he's a negotiator, even if he has to negotiate.
Michael,
I just add to the list of, we're in uncharted territory.
Yeah.
We seem to be assuming we're going to hear an acceptance speech from Donald Trump, perhaps, if this goes the way it's. You know what all the caveats are. Here's what I'm trying to say. You can put on that list trying to calm down the market because the Dow futures are down 800. I don't know what it is he says tonight or tomorrow, but he needs to the point of who will he surround himself with, make sure that he can instill some confidence in Wall Street sooner than later.
Yeah, and it'll also be interesting to see what Obama says, right? I mean, they have this meeting on Thursday or so. Obama has been very vocal that he didn't think that Donald Trump was qualified to be president. He didn't have the temperament. Donald Trump, if he becomes president, is a complete and utter repudiation of Obama. I mean, he ran as the anti-Obama. And if you look at all the things that the transition team has been saying, their goal is to undo Obama's legacy.
It is paradoxical because, as Anderson pointed out, the president's approval rating is quite high. But let me just say this. Part of what the president and others criticized Donald Trump for was suggesting that he might not accept the result of the election. I don't think you can do that and then not accept the result of the election. And I think there'll be people, and Van can speak to it, who are going to be in a resistant mood about this because they'll say Donald Trump didn't give Barack Obama a chance, so why should we give Donald Trump a chance? And the answer to that is we only have one president at a time, and you have to try and make it work.
We're going to have more with our panel, a lot more. Still looking, counting the votes, looking at the numbers state by state. We'll be right back.
Mr. Chief Justice, may it please the court. What is the danger to the state of Virginia of interracial marriage? What is the state of danger to the people of interracial marriage? Marriage is a fundamental right.
Do you think you'll lose?
We may lose the small battles, but win the big war.
Loving, based on a true story. Rated PG-13.
Looks like we're bound to start anew. Who better to start it with than you, dear? See you next year.
This season, start a new tradition. Experience the power of infinity now with leases starting at $319 a month. Infinity. Empower the drive.
I've roamed and rambled, and I followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts. And all around me, a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me.
The winner plots one step ahead of the opposition.
You're fighting the richest group on the hill.
So who's with me?
How the hell did she manage that?
Start an inquisition.
Get ready to be crucified.
Who's controlling you?
You are blackmailing a United States senator.
You crossed the line. We're not gonna lose.
You're a piece of work, Elizabeth.
I was hired to win, and there will only ever be one winner.
Miss Sloan, rated R.
Now we have a key race alert. Let's update you on all the outstanding votes right now. Let's start in the key, let's call it the battleground state of Michigan right now. 81% of the vote is in. Trump maintains a pretty good lead, 72,000 votes over Hillary Clinton. There are 16 electoral votes at stake in Michigan. Wisconsin, he's got an 87,000 vote lead over Hillary Clinton right now with 88% of the vote in. That's another 10 electoral votes right there. Let's see what happens in Wisconsin. In Arizona, he also has a pretty good lead of 64,000 votes over Hillary Clinton with 65% of the vote in Arizona. Arizona, 11 electoral votes at stake there. In Pennsylvania, Donald Trump maintains his lead, almost 59,000 vote lead over Hillary Clinton with 97% of the vote in. Trump still ahead in Pennsylvania, 20 electoral votes right there. Impressive leads in all of those states. Let's move on to New Hampshire right now. 87% of the vote in. Hillary Clinton has expanded her lead. She is now up by 3,500 votes over Donald Trump. Once again, 4 electoral votes in the state of New Hampshire. Hillary Clinton does have a lead also in the state of Maine. She's up by 17,000 votes over Donald Trump. 84% of the vote is in. 4 electoral votes in Maine. In Minnesota, Hillary Clinton has a lead there, 66,000 vote lead over Donald Trump. 85% of the vote is in the state of Minnesota, where there's 10 electoral votes. And in Alaska, the Donald Trump is building up a lead with 28% of the vote in, 13,500 vote lead over Hillary Clinton. There are 3 electoral votes at stake in Alaska. Let's take a look at the Electoral College map right now, where it stands. Donald Trump is ahead. He has 244 electoral votes to Hillary Clinton's 215 electoral votes. You need 270 to be elected president of the United States. Trump is getting closer and closer and closer in this improbable run. Very impressive run for Donald Trump. John, so let's take a look and see where we stand in these remaining states.
And we're not done yet in these remaining states up here, but at the moment, 6 states that President Obama carried 4 years ago have flipped. We're not done completely, but including Florida, and at the moment we're looking at Pennsylvania, Ohio, which is done, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa. Stunning as you look at it. So let's go back and look and see the ones we're still waiting on. 88% now of the vote, 49 to 46 here. This has been steady, and we did this by hand a short time ago. Now it has fed in. 99% in the vote now in Milwaukee. This is where the Democrats were telling us earlier, just wait, we're going to get a lot of votes out of Milwaukee. They did get more votes, but nowhere near enough to close the statewide gap. You pull out of the thing, you're still at 49 to 46, and you see the margin there. So let's look around at the blue areas. Are there places where we can get more Democratic votes? Well, we're 100% here. See, 100% is in. We're 100% here. You come up here, Dane County, it's a big county. It's almost 9% of the state population. This is the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We can expect that the votes still out here are going to go lopsided for Secretary Clinton. The question is, are there that many out there? Because it's the only place left where you have a large population center, relatively, Democratic area with the votes still out. And I'm very skeptical that there are anywhere near enough votes there to make that up. So you look at some other blue areas, we're at 91% here again. We're not talking about a lot of votes here. It's a smaller area of the state. You pull out, let's come over here to Eau Claire. We're at 87% here, but again, it's 1.7% of the state population. So this is what's happening in the Clinton War Room. They are desperately going county by county and calling their people and saying, is there anything missing? What's missing? So every now and then a number comes in and then you see it drop. They realize they've missed something. But if you look at this right now, we're going to count them to the end. But this has been, it's a relatively small lead, but it has been a steady, we call it a stubborn lead, in the sense that as more of the votes come in, it's holding up in the state of Wisconsin. It's 10. And a very important 10. Then you move over to Michigan, which is 16. And again, we've been stuck here for a while. 81%. You see the lead right here, 48 to 47 if you round that up. 70,000
votes.
Right, about 70,000 votes if you round that up. It just moved a little bit on you again there. And so what are we waiting for? Number one, we're still waiting, and this will be the bulk of what we're missing, is right here in Wayne County. Again, it's a place where Hillary Clinton is winning quite big, but the Milwaukee example told us, the Clinton campaign tells us, just wait, they're going to come. Maybe it will be different here, but it was not in Wisconsin. We waited, Milwaukee came in, it gave them a boost, but nowhere near what they needed. They need a miracle here out of Wayne County to make up some big numbers, translate when you get back out here. And you look through the state, earlier in the night, this was red, Marquette was red most of the night. Hillary Clinton came back, but we're at 100% now, and so there's no votes to be made up there. And so you're looking in the middle part of the state. Well, if you're trying to find areas, Genesee County, this is Flint. It's 4.3% of the state population. There's more for her. She's winning by a sizable margin. But again, you see 62-46. When the rest of that vote comes in, you're not going to get 30. You're not going to make up 30 or 50,000 votes there. You might make up some, but it doesn't look big enough. And that is the issue now as you go through these states. Oakland County's at 99%. You pop down. We're still waiting most of all on this Wayne County vote. Again, mathematically impossible? No. You're starting to look here and here, and the word improbable unlikely comes into your head. But we'll count them. We'll keep counting them. We've seen strange shifts before. This one switched late. Pennsylvania was coming in blue most of the night. It switched late. It is still a 1-point race. It's very close. Inside the Trump campaign, they think they have this. They've been checking around with their people. They think it's done. And you ask the Democrats where the vote's going to come from. You know, there's a little bit left here. There's a little bit left here.
Not much.
Yeah, you're mostly in. This is the biggest, you know, basket of Democratic votes of all. There's a little bit left there. But you look at this again. We'll wait. We'll keep counting. You know, we want to be cautious about this, but again, it's a small lead.
60,000 vote lead.
60,000 in a giant state like Pennsylvania. That's normally, you know, not a huge lead, but again, it has been steady and stubborn and persistent.
Pittsburgh's still open.
The Allegheny, last time I checked, it was mostly in at 98%. So again, this is an area where it's 10% of the state population. She held the lead there, but the numbers, one of the issues, even in places where she's performing by percentage, the turnout, you see issues with turnout. That was why the Democrats were saying wait on Milwaukee. Her percentages were about what a Democrat needs to do there, but the numbers weren't. It's not just your percentage. You got to turn people out, and that's a problem, especially when you have in places like this. We talked about this earlier. You know, 50% for Hillary Clinton to 47% for Donald Trump. Well, you're not going to win. You're not going to win in a state that has, you know, so much conservative territory. These are smaller, less populated areas, but the Democrats just in the fewer counties in Pennsylvania that are blue, the Democrats know the challenge. Not only win, but win big and run it up and do well in the suburbs. And she's just underperforming across. One that has come back, you look to the Northeast, New Hampshire has come back. Let's go back up here to 2016, but look at that. I mean, we're talking about 4,000 votes there, a little less than that.
Yeah.
A little less than that as you look at this right now. We're going to watch this come in. I mentioned earlier that the Trump people were very confident that when these votes came in down here, they would get more of them. We're still waiting on Derry. Londonderry next door has come in at a pretty good lead for Donald Trump there. So again, we're going to keep counting in New Hampshire. We're up to 87%, and this one is incredibly close seesaw. When you add it all up, Wolf, and you pull out here from an electoral college perspective, at least 2 out of 3 of these need to change for Hillary Clinton to have a hope. Probably all 3 of them. We still got some business to do out in the western part of the country. Some of these states aren't completely called yet, but the 2 big ones, Pennsylvania and Michigan, if they don't change, math doesn't work.
He's got 244 electoral votes. Right. By our projection, doesn't need all that many more in order to get to 270.
That would get you 64, 74, 80, 280 right there.
Anderson, back to you.
What we have seen tonight certainly is a revolution in American politics, and I'm wondering, at Trump supporters Corey Lewandowski and Jeffrey Lord, I mean, we used to talk a lot about the autopsy of the Republican Party done in 2012. There's certainly going to be one done among a lot of Democrats and probably even among some Republicans. But what does this mean? Jake Tapper made the point earlier about, the polls were all wrong. What does this mean for the whole polling industry? What does this mean for how elections are run in the future? Or is Donald Trump such a unique candidate because of the force of his personality that it's...
I'd say, and Corey probably knows infinitely more about this than I do, but, politics is about people. It's about human beings. And one of the things I think we have a problem with in the political world is that everybody is so obsessed with data, and there are human faces behind these things, and they don't listen. They don't pay attention. I mean, I've told you before about my, being at home in Pennsylvania and beginning to pick up the Donald Trump thing, even before Donald Trump announced for president, because of the way people were talking about issues that had nothing to do with Donald Trump at that point. That's what this is about altogether. And when you abandon that and you just, you're just going to sit in a room full of data, you're going to lose that.
Corey, when you signed on to be campaign manager, I mean, did you honestly, in your heart, believe this night, as it appears to be going right now, was going to turn out the way it did? Did you honestly believe?
I don't think in January of 2015, when I signed on to become Donald Trump's campaign manager, to lay the foundation, that anybody thought at that time Donald Trump was going to be elected president of the United States tonight. That's what is going to happen. It is unequivocal. The numbers are there. He's going to be the president of the United States. Now, how did that come to be? What we saw, against all of the pundits who said this would never happen, he would never run, never file his taxes, and all the other things you're aware of, what we saw was the American people didn't care about those things, and what they wanted, and what they want is someone who tells them the truth, that isn't stuck in a Washington mentality. And what he did, and what we did many, many times, and was criticized infinitely by the mainstream media, was he would have a rally, but this doesn't translate to votes, and the Democrats understand precisely what Mary had for breakfast today, and she had breakfast, and she ate at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They knocked on her door, and then they called her again. That's not how the American people function. That's not what the American people wanted. So what we do know is that connecting with people directly and having them buy into what you're doing, I think that's the big difference.
How much
people bought into Donald Trump?
How much did Donald, in your opinion, did Donald Trump, I mean, I've always thought Donald Trump has an extraordinary antenna, whether it's a political antenna or whatever it is, for sensing things in other people, whether it's in this company or in the crowds that he's talking to. He feeds off it. How much did Donald Trump, when he came down that escalator, do you think had in his mind what the mood of the electorate was? Or how much do you think was that he sensed once he started going out, meeting huge crowds of people, talking to people, that he learned from them?
Look, I think, and the Washington Post has reported this, Bob Costa has said it, he is the greatest raw political talent of a lifetime. The greatest, because he understands people fundamentally. And what you have in Donald Trump, and what the blue collar sees in Donald Trump is worth billions of dollars, has created an amazing company, employed tens of thousands of people. But you know what he does? He stops at McDonald's and eats there. And you know what he does? He walks a construction site and he talks to everybody with respect and dignity and doesn't think anybody is better than anybody else. And I've seen it firsthand on so many occasions. And when you go with him to a construction site, and I witnessed it here in Washington when he was building the old post office, he would stop and talk to every person there working and ask them, oh, is this the right way? And he would notice small things, taking pride in everything that he does at his properties, giving pride back to the people who are doing the work, making sure that they understand that he appreciates it. The American people see that, and it was real, and it is real, and that's what the American people respect.
I know Van and Paul.
Three things. First of all, let's just try to be clinical about it. When there is a revolution in media, when there's a new media form, a new master usually comes along and shocks everybody. Radio with FDR. People totally wrote FDR off, and then he understood radio better than everybody else, and he broke through. JFK, totally written off, but he understood television better than everybody else, and he broke through. Obama, totally written off, but he understood the internet, that you could raise money, small donation dollars, viral videos, and he was able to break through. Donald Trump understands social media and reality television better than anybody else. And that's the era that we're in. And so things that you do in social media, like being outrageous, insulting people, doesn't get you fewer followers on social media. It gets you more. The idea of being the villain actually is the star in a reality TV show. And he kind of understood that. He kind of played up the villain kind of thing. I was saying all along, as you guys will remember, that this guy was a major threat. I used to call him Trumpzilla. And every Democrat told me I was wrong. When Brexit came out, I did a Facebook video, and it was called Freak the F Out, because I said this could happen here. Every Democrat told me that I was wrong. Part of it is understanding the media environment. The other part is understanding, I said over and over again, quoting Lord of the Rings, where will the hammer fall? And I said the hammer will fall in the Rust Belt. And people said, no way, it's going to be blue forever. There is a problem with the Democratic establishment not understanding the media environment that we're in, not understanding where the pain is in the country, and taking a lot of stuff for granted. So you guys were able to take advantage of that. That said, it's not as rosy as you say.
Paul, just want to get you in, and then we got to go to break.
Well, we have to understand the political environment as well, right? Donald Trump did. He gave voice to this spectacular anger. But at the same time, 69 out of 99 state legislative chambers are controlled by the Republicans, the highest since 1920. 34 of 51 governors, the highest, third highest since the Second World War. 54 senators, the highest since 1928. 274 House members, the highest since 1928. In other words, there's a huge constituency for Republicans out there. This is a Republican country. Okay, President Obama, he cut through that.
Right.
But to try to win a third term has never been done by the Democratic Party.
We got to take a quick break. We'll have more. We'll continue to count the votes, continue to look at the states. We'll be right back.
Election Night in America is brought to you by the well-equipped 2017 Mitsubishi Outlander.
Mind making a run?
I got it.
The 2017 Mitsubishi Outlander Sport, with available all-wheel control and a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, starting at $19,795.
Hey, almost home.
It's ready for any adventure you can imagine. Get up to $3,000 cash back on select models during the Mitsubishi Motors Holiday Sales Event.
You're in the middle of the world, man.
Critics are calling Moonlight the best film of the year. It's a game changer and a flat-out masterpiece.
You can blame me, try to shame me, and still I'll care for you.
If you see one movie this year, make it Moonlight. Moonlight, rated R. Now playing in select theaters.
Closed captioning brought to you by InventHelp. Call 1-888-909-4332.
People ask me all the time, George, what do I do with my idea for a new product? I tell them, call my friends at InventHelp.
Call for free information.
Any excuse to come to Japan is a good one.
A sushi legend is taking Tony where it all started.
Oh, man.
Where's the beer?
Cheers.
Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown, Japan, Sunday at 9 on CNN.
I was on heroin.
I used crack cocaine.
We are the Addiction Network. And if you have a problem with drugs or alcohol, you need to call the number on your screen now. Addiction is a disease, and you can't go it alone. The call is free, and so is the consultation. If you have private insurance, your treatment could be covered with no out-of-pocket costs. So call the Addiction Network now.
Call 800-850-1427.
Now available on Dish Cinema.
This is Life with Lisa Lamb. New episodes, Sundays at 10 on CNN.
We have another projection right now. CNN now projects that Donald Trump will win the state of Alaska. Alaska has 3 electoral votes. Donald Trump will carry Alaska, another win for Donald Trump. Let's take a look at the Electoral College map. With this win, these 3 electoral votes, Donald Trump has moved closer and closer to this magic number of 270 needed to win the White House. He now has 247 votes. Hillary Clinton has 215 votes. He is getting closer and closer to that number of 270. Let's do a key race alert right now. All right, let's start off with the states that are still outstanding. We'll start off in Michigan, where 84% of the vote is now in. Trump has a nearly 80,000 vote lead in the state of Michigan, which right there has 16 electoral votes. Michigan, we're waiting for more votes. Wisconsin, 89% of the vote is in. Trump also has a pretty impressive lead, 86,000 vote lead over Hillary Clinton. There's another 10 electoral votes right there. Arizona, 66% of the vote is in. Trump has a 62,000 vote lead over Hillary Clinton. 11 electoral votes at stake in Arizona. He is ahead. In Pennsylvania, he is ahead as well. 97% of the vote is in. That's a healthy number. He is ahead by almost 77,000 votes over Hillary Clinton. Pennsylvania alone has 20 electoral votes. Trump is ahead at this late stage right there. Let's take a look at the remaining outstanding states. New Hampshire, 87% of the vote is in. Hillary Clinton has a lead, about 3,700 vote lead over Donald Trump, with 4 electoral votes at stake in New Hampshire. In Maine, another 4 electoral votes at stake there. Hillary Clinton is up there as well. She has an 18,000 vote lead over Donald Trump. 86% of the vote is in. And in Minnesota, Hillary Clinton is ahead by almost 57,000 votes over Donald Trump. 87% of the vote is in the state of Minnesota right there. So you see Donald Trump is doing well. Once again, let's take a look at the electoral map. You can see 270 needed to win, 247. It's 247 for Trump, 215 for Hillary Clinton. You see those yellow states, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 states remaining outstanding. Jake, Donald Trump in the biggest of those states right now is ahead.
And can I just say, we've been talking for months about what the effect of Donald Trump and comments he made would be on the Latino vote and on the vote of white college-educated women. And the truth of the matter is that, according to exit polls, the effect was not as strong as anybody would have predicted. Anybody did predict, except for maybe Mr. Trump. Donald Trump only lost white college-educated women by 6 points, according to the exit poll data I saw. That's not the huge gender gap chasm that we thought we were going to see. But perhaps even more surprisingly, I'm looking at exit poll data comparing the percentage of the Latino vote that Romney got versus the percentage of the Latino vote that Trump got in 4 states. In Florida, Trump got a smaller percentage than Romney got. But in Nevada, in New Mexico, and in North Carolina, Donald Trump did better with Latino voters than Mitt Romney did. I mean, tell me who had that on their bingo card.
Yeah, nobody. But that speaks to sort of taking it up to 10,000 feet here. Going back to June 16th, 2015, when Donald Trump announced, I see Corey over there, he was there, he remembers, every step of the way. He announced, nobody thought he really meant it. He wasn't going to give his financial records. He did. I remember vividly a top aide to one of the early frontrunners on the Republican primary contenders saying, "Why are you guys talking about Donald Trump? There's no way he will ever be Republican nominee." And then fast forward to all of these ups and downs that he had, and he was completely resilient for the reasons that you were just talking about. Because it all comes down to an economic message that he, no matter what else he veered off in, and he veered off in a lot of directions that his campaign did not appreciate, but he had the fundamental appeal to people who felt and feel left behind. And that was something that was impenetrable for these voters. And that is why he was Teflon Trump. And so along the way, I mean, we can chronicle it. We could sit here for 20 minutes and chronicle all of the zigs and zags of the Trump campaign, but he kept coming back because it was that fundamental.
And when you look at, this is traditionally a night where we'll talk about what the winner did right and not necessarily what the person who doesn't win, the loser, does wrong. But when you look at the campaign of Bill Clinton talking to working class voters in 1992 versus the campaign of Hillary Clinton talking to voters in 2016. I don't think you got it's the economy stupid message from Hillary Clinton that Bill Clinton and James Carville and Paul Begala and others drove home. It was a very different message. And apparently enough people in union households and in white working class households in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Ohio and Iowa thought, she's not talking to me. She's not telling me what she's going to do to make my life better, and Donald Trump is, which seems obvious now, but at the time, I think probably a lot of Democrats were frustrated.
And Dan, as you remember, all of us remember a lot of those Trump supporters, and there are millions of them. I think about 55 million already have voted for him tonight. So many of them were angry at Hillary Clinton when she used that word deplorables in describing Donald Trump supporters. And they said, we're Americans. We love this country. We are not deplorable.
No question. You know, it didn't turn out to be the Mitt Romney 47% moment that kind of, sort of played on a loop. But there's no question that the deplorable concept was something that the Trump supporters embraced. I mean, how many times did we go to a Trump rally and people were wearing T-shirts saying, "I'm a proud deplorable, adorable deplorable"? I mean, they embraced it because they thought it was so ridiculous, because they thought that their voices, and they think that their voices, should be heard too, and that Trump supporters were misunderstood. And some of them were, and some of them weren't. But that's a story for down the road. But the bottom line, at the end of the day, is that he surprised constantly throughout the entire Republican primary season, and then he clearly seems to have continued to do that through the general.
And you know what else, Jake, he did? He showed during the Republican primary contest when he beat 16 or 17 Republican senators and governors. So many of them had a lot more money in paid commercial advertising than he did. He had relatively little during the primaries, but he was on television clearly all of the time. And in the general election, Hillary Clinton, her campaign spent so much more money on negative ads against him, yet look at how well he has done today.
At the end of the day, it's not necessarily the richest candidate, as Jeb Bush showed us earlier. It's not necessarily the candidate that is flashier necessarily. It's the candidate that has a message that appeals to the plurality or majority of voters. And he apparently, we haven't called this race yet, but he apparently had that. That message of jobs, border, terrorism, Washington's broken, saying it over and over and over again, that was appealing. People think Washington is broken. They think they have lost their faith in American institutions, including Republican leaders and Democratic leaders in Congress, including law enforcement, including counterterrorism officials, including the mainstream media. They have lost their faith. And he was giving voice to them.
And Dan, he stuck by his basic message from day one. He said, we're going to build a wall. Mexico's going to pay for it. He still says that. In the past few days, he continues to say that. He's going to repeal and replace Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. He still says that. He's been saying that since day one. He's stuck to those messages, and it seems to have worked.
It's true. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking of Kellyanne Conway, his campaign manager's kind of her mantra. She said it to me, and she said it to both of you as well in interviews, which is her sort of diplomatic way of saying that she didn't think that Donald Trump did well when he hurt himself by getting distracted by other issues, but he did the best when he was talking about the issues. On that note, let me just tell you what she said in the "Told You So" tweet. Kind of very well constructed from Kellyanne Conway. Things that were true: undercover Trump vote, at Mike Pence for VP, Hillary's floor and ceiling are the same, rally crowds matter, we expanded the map.
All right, everybody stand by. It's a cliffhanger race right now. We're watching the final electoral votes come in. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
It's a beautiful movie about a guy who has to come back to the town where he's from in order to take care of his nephew.
Well, I can't be his guardian.
Patrick's a 15-year-old boy. He's got a whole life in Manchester.
You actually have sex with these girls? Strictly basement business.
The problem is, Lee has got to face the greatest tragedy of his life.
My heart was broken, and I know yours is broken too.
It feels like real life, and I think the movie's incredible.
Manchester by the Sea, rated R.
Let's face it, not all of your friends are created equal. Imagine traveling with a group of them. You have the night owl, there's the early bird, the lone wolf, and even the sloth. Now, of course, you wouldn't put them in the same room together. With one search, Trivago makes it easy for you to look for multiple rooms. Simply select the number of rooms and the number of people staying in them. So, same hotel, separate rooms, single search. Hotel, Trivago.
Closed captioning brought to you by InventHelp. Call 1-888-909-4332.
People ask me all the time, George, what do I do with my idea for a new product? I tell them, call my friends at InventHelp.
Call for free information.
Oh, let me see your hands.
Can cops still fight crime while under the lens?
This is our third eye.
I'm scared of police. Things you see on TV, it's half the story.
This is life.
New episode, Sunday night at 10 on CNN.
Dry mouth can really affect how your mouth feels and how you feel. Discover Act Dry Mouth, specially formulated to soothe and moisturize your mouth, even freshen breath, so nothing holds you back. Act Dry Mouth, relief when you need it.
Delilah won't go without a fight. She outfoxed me and I never saw it coming. But I was Corvo before I was the royal protector. I don't know what grand scheme you got underway, Delilah. But I'm coming to put you in your grave.
So it begins.
Rated M for mature.
When your skin is feeling dry and crinkly, time for Gold Bond Healing Lotion.